Welcome back to the Listening to Your Gut podcast. I'm really excited because lately I've been reading a lot of great books. This one is one of them, Powered by Nature, and we have the pleasure of having the author here. So we have Logan Christopher here. Welcome, Logan.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Logan, first of all, this book definitely needed to be written, and I feel like you were the perfect person to write it. And as you say in this book, you talk about how like nature really called you to share this, to share the knowledge that you've gained. But I really want us to go back, to really kind of your childhood. Could you talk about that in
Mhm.
the book? And I feel like it's so relatable. I felt, like I was you when you started talking about your childhood because, you are so very passionate. You can tell in this book, and just all of what you do is centered around us really connecting our bodies more so to nature. But that's not how you started, that's
No.
you were not birthed out of the womb, obsessed with nature. So I would love for you to kind of like walk us through the evolution of, how you got to where you are now.
Yeah. I had a pretty standard Western childhood growing up in California, which California is definitely different than a lot of places in the world. But that's just what I grew up in, like a fish in water. So I grew up eating cereal and Hot Pockets. Like my parents didn't know anything about health. We didn't spend time in nature. We watched a lot of TV. I played on the computer all the time. Lots of as much screen time as I could get because no one had an idea. Well, some people had ideas of what things were doing back then, but
Yeah.
really this was my childhood, and it was not like health was not in the picture, fitness was not in the picture. It wasn't really until I was entering adulthood that I kind of started to move towards these things. So I got into strength training,
Mhm.
doing stuff with body weight exercises and kettlebells, then some of the old time strongman stuff. So these days I'm known for some feats of strength that are kind of unusual, like pulling a fire truck by my hair, ripping decks of cards in half. Just recently, I actually ripped two decks of cards in half at once.
Holy cow.
So, yeah, again, I started off extremely weak and scrawny. I was the proverbial 98-pound weakling when I was entering high school. I didn't even weigh 100 pounds.
Wow.
Uh, so as I got into these things, I found a passion for them. And with that passion, because I wasn't gifted genetically, I sought to get an edge. So this led me to health and nutrition in the first place. It's like, oh, if I'm healthier, then I won't get sick as much. I can recover better. If I'm
Yeah.
eating good food, I'm going to nourish my body. It's going to be able to recover from the workouts. This led a bunch of different directions into herbalism, into mental training, everything really kind of aimed at how can I perform better in my strength training, but really everywhere in life.
Yeah.
I began as a personal trainer, then kind of took that business into the online world,
Mhm.
and it was the same thing there. It's like the more productive I can be, the better my businesses will do. So I was looking at cognitive performance and really all these different areas of life. And the more I learned about this stuff, really what I saw, and this was how my viewpoint of health is very different than most people. Most people, well, one, they define health only as the absence of disease, which
Mhm.
is not a very good definition of health. A better definition of health would be something that allows you to perform at your highest level in whatever you are passionate about, whatever you want to do. So,
Yeah.
can we actually focus our health in these ways? And as I found, the more I went into health, the more I realized that just really in all these areas, a lot of the chronic health problems, which are much bigger than acute health problems these days, is because we have gotten so far away from nature. Like there's reasons humanity did what it did,
Yeah.
but we made some mistakes along the way, and definitely did not have wisdom with us in every step that we did. So, Powered by Nature was really kind of walking through. This is how we've got off the wrong path. Here's how to begin to get back to it.
Yeah, and I love this book in that it's chock full of, research. I mean, you did a heck of a lot of
Yeah.
research. You can see the, all the references in the back. But what I really loved too was the narrative that you took us along with,
Mhm.
along the entire journey of, really telling us like what kind of some of these pivotal moments that took you to where you are right now, which one of which I feel like was a huge catalyst to, you know, you becoming so passionate was your journey into is it the Hour?
The Atwar.
Achuar, and then going through like the ayahuasca ceremony.
Hmm.
Tell us, like, I mean, I know lots of this is in the book, but like, what are some things that, like, just thinking right now, you gleamed from them, like, in the time you spent there?
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting journey down there. So in Ecuador, spent some time in the Amazon rainforest, mostly with the Atwar people, but also traveling down some different ways and meeting some other groups along the way.
Yeah,
What's just fascinating is just how starkly different it is from your and my everyday life.
yeah,
Just living in houses that don't even have walls. They have just thatched roofs and it's on a dirt ground and the people being extremely happy in those conditions, living with their families and providing the food from the land, different things like this. So really just having that kind of visceral, that felt experience of life being quite different. And the Amazon rainforest, like one of my friends there described it as a pilgrimage. And it really was in a sense that, the being able to sing like that far into wilderness. I mean, we were staying at a eco tourist lodge part. That's part of how the tribe funds itself. But that far into the rainforest, it was just fascinating. Like the cacophony of sound around,
yeah,
going on a night hike and just seeing spiders the size of my hand and all kinds of different animals just out and about,
yeah,
mostly insects, and just the sound around it is quite amazing. So it was a felt experience that really kind of connected me deeper. And of course, having that ayahuasca experience, which didn't quite go as I expected it
yeah.
to go, and that's
Hmm.
that's something that is can often be the case with various psychedelics, but it did lead to this message. And certainly I was already on this path, but the shaman and then the drum journey after that guided me to this message that the force itself was calling for me to be an emissary of nature.
Yeah.
And most people probably don't know the word emissary too much these days, but that's like a messenger that is sent out to go and kind of talk about this other entity, in this case, nature. And so that's really the I got that message and I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? And a couple other events unfolded where it then led to me writing that book.
Yeah, which is incredible. And like I said, you do talk about that in the book, but I loved how you took us through that. And I really felt, like you said, it wasn't the first thing that drew you to it, but it was certainly had a huge
Mhm,
impact. And it just, those types of experiences, I hope to be able to have one of those, at some point soon in my life, because
mhm,
I was very drawn into that experience and just what you learned from it, and all the knowledge that you gained. And really, I feel like the deeper connection you found, even more so with nature through that process. I feel like it's something, yeah, I wish we could all, muster up
mhm,
one, the courage to, like, get out there and do it, but also just how much we can learn about ourselves, but even more
mhm,
so about the nature. And you, time and time again in the book, you draw us back to, we are one with nature. We are connected, um, mind, body, and soul to nature. And so,
mhm,
I just have to say thank you for writing the book. And I want to share this with everybody that I chat with, and anyone who's interested in connecting more so to nature. I'm readily, wanting to share the book with them. But for those who are thinking about, oh yeah, I do want to check the book out, but they're wondering, that maybe they're curious, your thoughts on this question, which would be, what would you say, for someone who wants to start connecting more to nature, what would be something that they could just start to try? And you do a beautiful job, I feel, towards the end, talking about all the different myriad things we could do, and just pick one thing, right? Just pick
mhm,
one thing and get really good at that one thing. And I love that approach, because that's the approach for most things in my life. So I
mhm.
love that approach. I second that approach. But, how could we start to just connect
Yeah.
more?
Yeah, the good news is you do not need to go down to the Amazon in order to to begin
Yep.
with that. While that experience is great, you can do that in your own backyard. And if you don't have a backyard, if you live in a city, you can go to a park. What I would recommend is just, nature is all around us. We
Yes.
build on top of it and around it, but really it is there. So even just going to a park or in your backyard, and one of the best things to do for your health and to get that connection, because it is literally a connection, is to go barefoot on the ground. Now I know we're still in winter here, and so this may or may not work it, but doing things in alignment with the seasons is definitely important. But if you can, or when you can, going barefoot on the earth, this provides an actual electrical connection through your body, and many benefits are coming from this. It's helping to regulate our circadian rhythm, helps to establish better sleep patterns, helps to reduce soreness and inflammation throughout the body. So getting the actual skin to ground contact is very important. And if you're doing this, then you're going to be outside and you're breathing fresh air. That's a thing with nature. Like, just being outside is providing a bunch of different benefits. So
Yeah.
if you can be barefoot, that's great. But even if not, just having the fresh air, this air is, even in a city, it's going to be better quality than what is indoors. Indoors is often filled with chemicals from off-gassing furniture, paints, all kinds of different things. So unfortunately, that is a toxic soup that we live in to some
Yeah.
degree.
Yep.
But being outside, you're going to have a lot of the benefits from that, especially if there are trees around or plants that are releasing essential oils that are breathing in, that we're taking into our lungs. Also, if you're outside, having your skin getting in contact with the sun when the sun is out. I'm not a big fan of sunscreens. There certainly is a time and place for them, and especially the natural kinds, not the ones that are full of
Yes.
endocrine disrupting
Yes.
chemicals.
Yep.
But really, all of humanity has lived in the sun, and it's not as dangerous as it is touted to be. Although it does increase skin cancers, these tend to be of the benign variety, while getting sun exposure is going to help with all cancers.
Yeah.
It's going to help people live longer as well. So for me personally, I would rather get a sunburn than I would put on a sunscreen.
Yeah.
That being said, if I know I'm going to be out for a long time, like, I use clothing, I go in the shade. If I absolutely need to, I'll use a zinc oxide where it's reflective and it's not actually absorbing into the body. But
Yep.
so once again, just to recap that, go outside, get barefoot, breathe the fresh air, and get sun. Something as simple as that, and you're actually connecting through the energy, through the ground itself, connecting yourself to nature.
Yeah.
Just being inside our house, where we're insulated from the ground, we're sealed in a box for the
Yeah.
most part with the air, and we have unnatural light rather than natural lights coming in. This is how we are disconnected. It's just the kind of inverse, and unfortunately, a lot of these things are coming with a detriment to our health rather than a benefit.
Yeah, it has so many incredible benefits to be out in nature, like you said. And I mean, that's also why when we are outside taking a walk, just moving our bodies, we feel better, right? Like
Hmm.
that that old adage of like go take a walk and you'll feel better. It's true. You need to
Absolutely.
get out there, you need to do that because it clears the mind and we're meant to be out in nature, as you said, as we know intuitively, but we've just become so detached over time,
Mhm.
just due to the evolving of our society. But I love that, and I also love. I'm actually in pursuit of one of the things you mentioned in here was different plants to put in your home. So
Hmm.
I highlighted that up and down that page of all the plants. So I am in pursuit of trying to find some of those because I'm like, I need some plants in here. Like, what am I
Hmm.
doing?
Yep.
So many benefits to that. Helps to clear the air, just makes you feel good to see a plant.
Hmm.
And the other thing too that I wanted to touch on was what was the other one? It was the plants, and I can't think of it right now, but I'm sure I'll think of it later. But yeah, I mean, just so many, this book makes it so accessible is one of the things I want to just make sure I say time and time again. Like, you make it easy to do the right thing. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. When you share the springs, like
Hmm.
the link to finding the different water springs, I was
Yep.
like, goodness, I'm not near, unfortunately, I'm not near one, but when you talked about that in your book of, going and filling up, like 20 gallons at
Hmm.
the local spring, I was like, I want to do that. It's like it's
Yep.
those simple things of, just like water, like having clean water, but we again, for a lot of us are not near those things, so it becomes hard to do that, but I feel like it almost motivates you to, like you said in the book, take a trip and go
Hmm.
find one. That could be your vacation. Go, you really want to connect with nature, get out in nature and go find a spring and get
Yep.
yourself some water. I love that. So I did want to touch on that for a moment, but I don't know if you wanted to add any thoughts to that.
Yeah, I mean, few people have even like thought about where their water comes from besides the tap or
Right.
lakes or oceans were out there, but the water literally comes from out of the earth,
Yeah.
the springs, and we see this in our naming, like Spring Street or Springfield. All these different areas is people settled way back when there were still settlers around water sources because they needed water, and you can't just drink from a river or stream, especially these days. You want to be very careful with that, but even in the olden days, there could be something that died or defecated upstream, and bacteria, various things could get in you if you did that. But if you are collecting from the source of the spring, that is where is bubbling up out of the ground or just coming up out of there, then there's nothing that can really be upstream of that. And in fact, all of us are looking at water filters these days, and we have these things that are maybe like this big.
Yeah.
In general, the bigger your water filter, the more it's going to be able to do, the more different materials that are in there. So if you think of the earth being your filter, you have this massive amounts of stones with all kinds of different things. This is acting as a filtration. And
Yeah.
oftentimes from these springs, they're coming from aquifers that have been there for a long time. So in general, these tend to be a very clean sources of water. I have unfortunately tested a few and seen that they're contaminated with some radioactive elements. So some all natural like uranium coming from mountains. So you do want to be a little bit careful. Not every single spring is absolutely good to do,
Yeah.
but certainly a lot of them are definitely going to be quite useful. And in addition, that hot springs are great. I'm living in Salt Lake City, Utah, and about an hour and a half north of me here is one of the most mineral, I believe it's the most mineral rich hot spring in all of the US. So going in here is a place where you can absorb those minerals through the skin and get them to all the different places in the body that they want to go, rich in all sorts of different minerals. And this was a way that we actually got some of our mineral supplementation in the past, was not just from the food, but
Yeah.
bathing in natural bodies of water that had mineral rich content. Your skin does absorb stuff. So just like the sunscreen, some stuff we don't want to absorb, but there is good things out there in nature too, like in the hot springs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. I mean, again, you're just a wealth of knowledge and I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I
Mhm.
also want to talk about, I mean, you've got so many things going on, which is so cool. All, tied into nature. Tell us about, you co-founded with your two brothers, Lost Empire Herbs. Tell us, what's unique about this business and really what your mission behind it is.
Yeah, so this fits in exactly in what we're talking about here. One way that we have gotten away from nature is that, we have our domesticated food groups that the world over, it's something like 80-90% of the food in the world that is consumed is just 10 different foods. When the truth is there is such a wide variety of things out there. And up until about the early 1900s, herbalism was medicine essentially for humanity, and everyone survived. People were dying, of course, but
Yeah.
humanity survived through that time. There was very valuable treatments in Eastern traditions as well as Western ones, and it's really with the start of Western medicine that here in the US especially, things like herbalism were kind of sent underground and really relegated away, like that stuff doesn't work, there's not science behind that, when in actual reality, oftentimes the ancient wisdom, whatever people said it was looking, once science actually began to look and investigate that, it often found that things were quite true. So our herbs, when I say the word herb, people tend to either think of cannabis or culinary herbs, right? That's kind of
Mhm.
the average person's exposure of herbs out there.
Yeah.
And although these have the use, that's not the herbs that I'm really talking about. Culinary herbs are used to make foods taste good. They certainly have some health benefits, absolutely there. But many of the herbs that are used in like Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Western herbalism, a lot of them don't taste so good. So they're definitely not used with cooking all that often. But having these herbs, they can provide a wide range of benefits. Again, that idea of performance, they can support workouts, sleeping better, cognition, all these different functions. There are herbs for that help really support. So this is another way of bringing nature into you. So this is something you can do from the comfort of your home, taking some herbs, bringing nature literally inside your body, working with the intelligence that are these plants to the intelligence of, say, your immune system or your metabolism, and helping to support it in that way. So what me and my brothers are trying to do at Lost Empire Herbs is use this as kind of the spearhead of getting people back to nature. Like we really live in a pop a pill mentality society. So if we can start someone there, but like deliver great benefits to where they're like, wow, and then they have the energy to go outside and hike or go camping or whatnot to get more of that connection in there. That's what we're really trying to accomplish.
I love that. That's amazing. And I love the name too. And it's just it's all so fitting. I love it. You touched on this earlier. Your passion for strength and endurance. And like you said, I mean, you've done so many incredible things that like to the average human, they're like, how is that even possible? I'm really curious, like what have you learned from, building your strength and endurance about yourself and your physical capabilities?
Well, it's definitely been a long journey with many ups and downs along the way, but I mean the biggest things is this. So I read a biography of an old-time strongman, this guy named the Mighty Atom, who back in the vaudeville era, he was doing shows and performances. He stopped a single propeller plane from taking off, and it was attached just to his hair. Yeah, he bent steel and spikes and bit through chains, quite literally. So he did these amazing things, and when I read that, I was like, I want to do that. For whatever reason, it grasped me. Now I understand most people do not want to do that. But if you just want to be fit and healthy, it still takes the same things of consistency and understanding progressions. Like I'm starting here, it doesn't matter where you're starting at, and I want to get to some point, some goal that I want to do. Okay, what's my plan to get there? What are the first steps that I need to take? Building in the habits so that you're consistent with training and just moving along that way. And as long as you're doing that, then you can add on other things like, mental training, looking at the right sort of programming that'll help get you there. But if you're being consistent and you're working with the feedback of your body, really listening to your body along the way, you're going to be able to accomplish some pretty amazing things. It's not actually all that difficult to do so if you really set your mind to it and are really convinced and really work and on building the belief in yourself to do so.
Sure. I'm curious, how long have you been at this?
So I really got serious about training around the age of 18 or 19, and I'm 39 now, so 20
Okay.
years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's the th I was just starting that and not accomplishing much. Then at some point I was like, oh, I can do feats of strength that most people cannot do, and now I've done some things that very few people in the world have accomplished, and it's like, well, the time's going to pass anyway, right? So you
Yeah.
might as well put yourself to something you really enjoy doing, and then go after it.
That's incredible. Well, congratulations to you. It begs the question, have you like set any Guinness records?
I have not specifically done any Guinness records. I've
Okay.
thought about that, but haven't
Okay.
looked
Yeah.
into any specific ones that I would want to
Wow.
do.
Okay. Wow.
At least yet.
Yeah, you'll have to keep us posted on that, but that's incredible. Um, okay, I also want you to tell us about the two books. So obviously we've touched on your book, Powered by Nature. And you also have another book, which I told you before we started recording, that I'm going to be reading too,
Mhm.
because I'm also really excited about that, called Mental Muscle. Tell us, like what we can gain from both books, and like, where should we start? Should someone maybe read, Powered by Nature first and then read Mental Muscle? Does it matter? Or, give us kind of some insight into that.
Yeah, I'd say Powered by Nature if you're interested in health and really that connection to nature. There's definitely the performance angle in there, but really I'd say it's predominantly about health. Then that's a good place to start. Mental Muscle is going to be directed towards people that are involved in some form of fitness, whether it's sports or competition or just training for health. But then it is really about taking the idea of mental training and how do you actually do this. So, moments ago I just said you have to believe in yourself. It's like everyone's heard that, everyone knows that. Few people actually know a step-by-step process in order to actually go through and work on something like that. So with mental muscle, this took some of the other fields of study that I engaged in, such as neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis, and took those tools and applied them specifically to fitness, which seemingly no one had really done all that much of before. So there's very cool things with visualization, for instance. Everyone's heard that like visualization can be useful for sports, but a way that NLP looks at it is that how you visualize is much more important than even what you visualize. So you can look at the specific details in how you're visualizing. So a technique that I often teach people is something that works is, let's say you're doing an exercise. Right before you do that exercise, visualize yourself doing it, but turn on the brightness in the room as if the lights are turning up. And essentially what this is doing is kind of amping up your neurology, the energy in your nervous system. And then you're going to be able to apply it to that exercise. And very often doing something as simple as that, people will be able to do more reps than they otherwise would before. So mental muscle dives into all sorts of different techniques and methods to work on your fitness with beliefs, with your plans and goals, with visualization, hypnosis, anchoring, a few other techniques as well.
I love that. I feel like, I ran my first full marathon 5 years ago, and I feel like that would be a great book to read for someone like first time in it. Heck,
Hmm.
even, second, third, however many times. I love that. That's
Yep.
incredible. I can't wait to read that book. And I know you also have a publishing company where you put out, videos and articles and research and all kinds of things. So tell us a little bit more about that and how we can learn through that avenue.
Yeah, so I've definitely been prolific. I actually have other books besides those two as well.
Yeah.
There's ones on a lot on fitness stuff and some other aspects of health. I'm working on a few books right now as well. So on my websites, legendarystrength.com and lostempireherbs.com, you'll find a plethora of information. I've been writing for some 20 years just about here. So all sorts of aspects of fitness, of mental training, of herbs, of nutrition, of health are going to be covered on those two different websites. So people can definitely go and enjoy themselves on there. I'll mention on the legendarystrength.com website, if you go there, there's a best of on the menu, and that's
Okay.
going to show some of the feats of strength. So if you want some entertainment to see me juggling flaming kettlebells or supporting 1,000 tons and 1,000 pounds in a wrestler's bridge, then you'll have some entertainment on that page.
Yeah, I love that. We definitely need those videos. I love it. And then, of course, the websites we can connect with you there. There any other ways that we can connect with you that you want to
Yeah,
share?
I'm on social media. I'm not all that active, though. Have been posting some videos there. So
Mhm.
Facebook, Lost Empire Herbs or Logan Christopher. Then Instagram, I'm known as Strongman Logan. So you'll find me there.
Love it. Well, Logan, this has been a pleasure chatting with you. I'm excited to check out Mental Muscle. And yes, I did see when I was on Amazon, I was like, oh my gosh, look at all these books.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to look into those as well. But just thank you so much for your time today. And it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Well, thanks for having me, Kelly. It was a pleasure to talk about my books.
Absolutely.